This narrative is called Falsely Accused, Disowned, and Betrayed by My Family. How the truth finally emerged after 5 years and changed everything. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel has been losing some momentum, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and helps us continue providing great content. Your support means everything to us. Let's keep the channel growing together. Thanks a lot, and now let's begin the video. All right, Reddit, this is going to be a lengthy post. I never expected to share this story here, but after everything that's happened recently, I need to get this off my chest. Quick note, I'm using fake names for obvious reasons and posting from an alternate account because some of the people involved still follow my main account. So, I'm James, 32 years old now, but this whole ordeal started when I was 27. For some context, I grew up in a medium-sized town outside Portland, where everyone pretty much knows everyone else's business. One of those towns. My cousin Mike and I were extremely close growing up. We even shared a room during every family vacation until we were teenagers. Our moms are sisters, so they made sure we spent almost every holiday and weekend together. Mike was marrying Katie, who lived just 3 houses away from us when we were kids. Her family moved to our street when she was 8, and I was 10, and our families instantly clicked. You know how some neighbors end up like family? That was us. Katie's parents would watch me and Mike when our parents worked late, and we'd have joint BBQs every summer. Katie was like my little sister. She came to me for advice about boys in middle school. I helped her with math homework. Well, more like we struggled through it together. Haha. And I even taught her how to drive in my old Honda Civic when she was learning. Rest in peace, my car's transmission. So, when Mike and Katie started dating in college, everyone was thrilled. It just made sense. They'd been close for years. And when they finally got together in their junior year, the whole family was ecstatic. I'm not exaggerating. Our grandma even cried when they announced their engagement. Fast forward to the wedding day, June 15th, 2019. It was at a nice venue just outside town. Nothing too extravagant, but definitely nicer than my brother Mark's backyard wedding the previous year. Sorry, bro, but the porta potty situation was rough. I was one of Mike's groomsmen, along with his best man Tom, his college roommate, and a few other guys. The morning started normally. I got there early to help set up, because that's what you do when your favorite cousin is getting married, right? I wore a navy suit that was way too expensive, but hey, wedding photos last forever. I had my groomsman boutonniere pinned on. It took me 3 tries to get it right. And I was helping direct people to where they needed to go. An elderly couple asked me where the bathrooms were for the 3rd time, and I was walking them over personally because I'm not a monster. That's when everything went south. I hear this commotion behind me, and before I can turn around fully, wham! I got hit so hard I literally saw stars. Like, I thought that was just a movie thing, but nope, actual freaking stars. Mike came charging in with Tom and a couple of other guys following. He looked, I don't even know how to describe it, like rage, hurt, and something else all mixed together. He started attacking me, not just one punch, but full-on assault mode. I'm not a small guy. I'm 6 feet 1 inch and hit the gym occasionally. But Mike works construction, and he was just destroying me. He was screaming stuff like, "How could you? And I trusted you." Meanwhile, I'm just trying to protect my face and figure out what the hell is going on. Tom and 2 other groomsmen eventually managed to pull him off me. But by then, I was bleeding all over my fancy new suit. Rip to that too. Blood doesn't come out easily. My left eye was swelling shut, and I was pretty sure my nose was broken. The elderly couple I was helping just stood there in shock. The woman was crying. I still feel bad about ruining their day. Someone, I think it was the venue manager, called for medical help. They wanted to call the cops, but I managed to say no through my busted lip. Even though I had no idea what was happening, this was still Mike. We grew up together. No way was I getting him arrested. I ended up at an urgent care clinic a few miles away. The doctor kept asking if I wanted to press charges while checking if my nose was broken. Fun fact, it wasn't broken, just badly bruised. I still have a small bump there. She gave me an ice pack that was so cold, it almost hurt worse than the punches. Okay, not really, but those medical ice packs are no joke. That's when I got the text. You know those moments in movies where a character looks at their phone and their whole world changes? Yeah, it was one of those. It was from my dad. Wedding's canceled. Clear your stuff out of the garage by tonight. Quick context. I had moved out years ago, but kept some stuff stored at my parents' house. Boxes of childhood memories, sports equipment, photo albums, basically stuff that won't fit in a small apartment, but you can't bear to throw away. Nothing major, but the way he said it made me realize something was seriously wrong. I called my dad immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. Same with my mom. My sister wouldn't pick up either. The only person who answered was my brother Mark, and all he said was, "How could you do this to the family?" before hanging up. I was sitting in urgent care with an ice pack on my face, looking like I'd been in a fight, and no one in my family would answer their phones. The nurse kept giving me sympathetic looks while I tried calling everyone I could think of. I probably looked like a guy who got in a bar fight at 11 a.m. while wearing a suit. I decided to drive to my parents' house. Quick side note, trying to drive with one eye swollen shut is not fun. Do not recommend. I had to turn my whole head to check my blind spot. I probably looked like a deranged owl to other drivers. When I pulled up, my parents' house looked the same. With the faded blue paint my mom's been promising to redo for years. My sister Jenny's car was in the driveway along with Mark's truck and my parents' vehicles. Great, the whole family's here. This should be fun. I walked in through the garage, still had my key, and into the kitchen. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and everyone stops talking immediately? Multiply that by about 1,000. Mom was sitting at the kitchen island, Dad was by the coffee maker. Jenny was on her usual spot on the counter. She's 25, but still sits there like she's 12. And Mark was leaning against the fridge. Mom gasped, not like a subtle gasp, but full-on soap opera style. "Oh my God, what did Mike do to your face?" Then she immediately followed it with, "But how could you, James? How could you do this to the family?" The whiplash from concern to accusation gave me an even worse headache than I already had. That's when they finally told me what was going on. Apparently, I had been having an affair with Katie. Yes, that Katie, the girl who used to make fun of my acne in high school, the one who helped me pick out my first real girlfriend's birthday present, the person who literally called me her big brother in her college graduation speech. According to them, we had been sneaking around for months. I literally laughed out loud, which, pro tip, don't laugh with a split lip. It hurts like hell. But it was just so ridiculous I couldn't help it. That's when Mark, my own brother, who was best man at my wedding before my divorce, whole other story, not relevant here, grabbed a duffel bag from behind the couch and threw it at my feet, telling me to get my stuff and get out. He tried to sound tough, like he was in some movie. The bag only had about half of my stuff from the garage. I found out later he just grabbed random things, my old baseball cards, but left all my photos from high school and college. Thanks, bro. I tried explaining. I kept saying this was insane, asking for proof, trying to understand where all of this was even coming from. Dad just kept shaking his head and saying things like, "We trusted you. And how could you do this to Mike?" Mom wouldn't even look at me. Jenny, who usually talks enough for the whole family, just sat there silent. I asked them what proof they had. Their response? "We just know." That was it. They didn't have any screenshots of text because there weren't any. No photos of us together. Just the normal family photos from the past 15 years. Nothing, they just knew. The worst part? These are the people who know me. My mom and dad, who raised me to always tell the truth, who grounded me for a month in 8th grade when I lied about finishing my science project. Jenny, who used to come to me with all her problems because I was the reasonable one in the family. Mark, who I helped move apartments 3 times because he was too cheap to hire movers. They all just decided I was guilty, no questions asked. I tried calling Katie, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted her. No response. I even called her parents' house. Mr. H answered and told me if I called again, he'd call the police. Real Christian behavior there, Mr. H. Everyone deserves forgiveness, right? I left my parents' house in a daze. Didn't even grab the bag Mark threw at me. I just got in my car and drove. I ended up at Murphy's, the bar downtown where I've been going for trivia night every Thursday for years. The bartender, Dave, took one look at my face and started pouring my usual whiskey sour. Basic, I know. Then Mike's college roommate walked in for his shift, saw me, and suddenly Dave was telling me I had to leave. Apparently, I wasn't welcome there anymore. Great. Real great. I drove home to my apartment, tried calling Katie again. Nothing. My phone was blowing up with texts from random family members and family friends. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone knew we were too close. Every time Katie and I hung out or talked, it was suspicious. That time, I helped her move apartments after college. Obviously, we were hooking up. The fact that her boyfriend at the time helped too? Conveniently forgotten. I had to turn my phone off and just sit there in my dark apartment with a bag of frozen peas on my face. The ice pack from urgent care had melted. I was trying to figure out how my whole life had fallen apart in the span of about 6 hours. I called in sick to work for Monday. How do you explain to your boss that your face looks like a professional boxer's punching bag because your cousin thinks you're sleeping with his fiancée? Yeah, that wasn't a conversation I wanted to have. The next few weeks were absolute hell. You don't realize how interconnected your life is with your family until they all suddenly decide you're dead to them. A quick example. I tried going to my regular gym on Monday morning, thinking exercise might help clear my head. Guess who was there? Mike's workout buddy, Steve, who apparently now manages the gym. The situation at my usual coffee shop escalated quickly when the barista, who was Katie's cousin, started treating me differently. The owner of the local grocery store, who went to church with Mike's parents, seemed to avoid me too. Even my dentist had to cancel my appointment because his child played Little League with Mike's nephew. Work became a nightmare as well. I had to explain to my boss why I looked like I'd been in a bar fight. I tried to keep it vague, but Susan from accounting overheard. Of course she did, and by lunchtime, the entire office knew. I was called into HR because someone, thanks to Susan, was concerned about my personal conduct. I had to explain to a 23-year-old HR rep that, no, I wasn't having an inappropriate relationship with anyone. While she looked at me like I was a villain in a soap opera, after about a week, I finally managed to get a hold of Katie. That first phone call was explosive, like a nuclear bomb had gone off. She screamed at me for ruining her life, and I yelled back about how mine was destroyed too. But between the yelling and the crying, yes, I cried, judge me all you want, we actually began to listen to each other. It turned out her situation was even worse than mine. Her extremely religious parents had effectively cut her off, even trying to have her formally excommunicated from the church. Spoiler alert, that's not how it works, Mr. H.R. Her mom had already packed all her childhood belongings into garbage bags and left them on the front porch. Real classy. Katie's work life was a mess as well. She was a project manager at a large marketing firm, but her team lead was Mike's cousin on his mom's side. Suddenly, all her projects were reassigned and she was being written up for being unfocused at work. Yeah, no wonder she was unfocused. Her whole life was falling apart. We started comparing notes through text, since talking on the phone felt too risky. Didn't want anyone overhearing and starting more rumors. Neither of us could figure out where these accusations came from. Every time we asked for proof, people just said things like, everyone knows, or it's obvious. What was obvious? That we'd known each other since childhood? That we could talk without it being weird? The one time I confronted Mike was at the gas station. He couldn't run away while pumping gas. His response? I saw the way you looked at her. Are you kidding me? I looked at her the same way I looked at Jenny, because she was like my sister. Remember that duffel bag of stuff from my parents' garage? I finally went back to get the rest of my things about 2 weeks later. Mom had packed everything into boxes and left them in the garage, but she didn't even label them, just threw everything together randomly. I found my high school graduation photos mixed in with old Christmas decorations, and my college diploma was stuffed in with sports equipment. Cool, real cool, Mom. Social media fallout was just as bad. I got blocked by pretty much everyone in my family. Katie's sister, who I'd helped with her college applications, posted a vague status about snakes in the family that got like 200 comments. People I hadn't talked to since high school suddenly started messaging me about how they always knew something was off with me. I started getting random calls and texts from unknown numbers. Apparently, someone, pretty sure it was Katie's brother, had shared my number in a family group chat. I had to change my number after being bombarded with lovely messages, calling me everything from a home wrecker to, well, you can imagine. The worst part? Some of these people had known me my entire life. Mrs. D from down the street, who used to give me cookies when I mowed her lawn in high school, crossed the street to avoid me. Mr. P from the hardware store, who taught me how to fix a leaky faucet when I bought my first apartment, suddenly closed his store for inventory every time I tried to go in. Katie and I eventually realized we needed to leave. This town was suffocating us. Everyone had already decided we were guilty, and nothing we said or did would change their minds. We couldn't even meet up to talk about it in person because people would definitely see us and think it confirmed everything. It got exhausting defending myself against something I didn't do. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove something didn't happen? It's impossible, and apparently, in everyone's eyes, the fact that we couldn't prove our innocence meant we were guilty. After about 2 months of living like a hermit and getting strange looks from DoorDash drivers, pretty sure someone told them I was that guy, I decided enough was enough. I applied for a transfer at work. Fortunately, my company had offices in Seattle. My boss was surprisingly cool about it. Probably just wanted to get rid of the office drama, to be honest. Katie and I had one final conversation before leaving town. We agreed it would be better to go our separate ways. She chose Chicago, I took Seattle. We kept in touch via Instagram, but that was it. Unfollowed each other everywhere else, just to be safe. Didn't need anyone screenshotting our conversations and starting rumors about us still sneaking around. Moving to Seattle was interesting. Try explaining to potential roommates why you're suddenly moving to a new city at 27 with basically no furniture. My first place was a tiny studio in Capitol Hill that cost way too much, but it was mine, and no one there knew my name or my story. Can't put a price on that kind of freedom. I started over completely, new phone number, new email. Had to abandon my old one after it got spammed with subscription signups. Real mature, guys. I even got rid of my old PlayStation account because some of Mike's friends kept sending me hateful messages through the gaming chat. Who does that? Work was actually pretty good. The nice thing about being the new guy is no one asks too many questions about your past. I told people I needed a change of scenery, which wasn't technically a lie. I threw myself into work, started hitting the gym regularly, different gym than my old one, obviously, and tried to build a routine. I found this cool bar called The Crocodile, which did trivia nights on Wednesdays. It had a different vibe than Murphy's back home, but the bartenders didn't look at me like I was Satan incarnate, so that was an upgrade. I started going regularly and met some decent people. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Then came the work, BBQ that changed everything. It was summer 2021, one of those rare perfect Seattle days where it wasn't raining and not too hot. My coworker Jake hosted it at his place in Ballard. I almost didn't go. I still wasn't great with group social situations. But Jake had helped me figure out the Seattle bus system when I first moved, so I felt like I owed him. That's where I met Amy. She was Jake's wife's friend from yoga class. Remember those moments in movies when the main character sees someone and everything else kind of fades away? Yeah, that's a load of crap. What actually happened was she caught me having an embarrassingly intense conversation with Jake's dog about proper frisbee throwing technique. Not my smoothest moment, but somehow that led to us talking. She was easy to talk to, didn't do that Seattle freeze thing where people are polite but distant. We ended up sitting on Jake's porch for about 2 hours, just chatting about random stuff. She was into true crime podcasts, I see the irony, and she actually laughed at my dumb jokes about Seattle traffic. We started dating pretty quickly after that. By the third date, I knew I had to tell her everything. You can't build something real on lies, right? So I laid it all out. The wedding, the accusations, the family drama, everything. I figured she'd run for the hills. Instead, she just listened. Actually listened. She asked questions that showed she was trying to understand, not judge. When I finished, she just said, "That really sucks. Want to get ice cream?" And somehow, that was exactly the right response. The weird part? She started following Katie on Instagram. I'd mentioned keeping minimal contact with Katie, but it turned out they were both obsessed with this podcast called Crime Junkie. Suddenly, they were DMing each other about episodes. Next thing I know, they've started this virtual book club with some other true crime fans. They do Zoom calls every other week with wine and snacks to discuss whatever they're reading. Katie's life got better too. She met this guy Chris through work in Chicago. He's some kind of software developer who apparently can't write code without at least 3 monitors. Amy's words, not mine. They talk about random stuff in their book club. He seems decent, though, treats her well, doesn't jump to insane conclusions. You know, the basics. I started feeling like maybe everything happened for a reason. Don't get me wrong, I still hated losing my family and hometown. I still have days when I miss my mom's cooking or wonder what my nieces and nephews look like now. But I've built something good here. I have friends who genuinely trust me, a girlfriend who actually listens, and a life that feels truly mine. The funny part is, I actually like who I am in Seattle more than I did in Portland. Portland me was always focused on pleasing everyone, tiptoeing around family drama. Seattle me, on the other hand, just lives. Goes to work, plays video games, takes Amy to try new places to eat, and exists without constantly worrying about what others think. I found out from Katie that her parents are still speaking poorly of me at church. Apparently, I'm their example of wolves in sheep's clothing, or something like that. Whatever, it's good to know after 5 years they're still talking about me. Real healthy Mr. and Mrs. H. So there I was, living my best Seattle life. Great job, wonderful girlfriend, even started taking cooking classes. Turns out I'm great at pasta. Everything else? Still a work in progress. Then, last month, everything changed. It was as if the past came crashing back, like the worst hangover. It started on a Tuesday. Amy works from home most days because her company went remote after COVID and never returned to the office. She usually walks to this Mediterranean spot down the street for lunch. They make shawarma that's practically addictive in sandwich form. That day, she came home and something felt off. There was a note stuck to our door. It wasn't a "sorry we missed your delivery" type of note, nor a flyer for lawn care. We live in an apartment, but sure, keep those coming. It was just a plain white piece of paper that said, "We need to talk. I'll be back tonight." No name, no contact info, just that. Since my name is on the mailbox and Amy kept her old apartment as a rental, she figured it was meant for me. She called me at work, which never happens because she hates phone calls and prefers texting. I could tell she was really shaken because she was speaking fast and forgetting to take breaths. I left work early. Who wouldn't? And got home to find Amy had locked all the doors and was holding her old college softball bat. She played Division I softball at WSU and still has a mean swing. We sometimes go to the batting cages, and she consistently beats me. But seeing her so scared that she grabbed the bat was a different feeling altogether. We stayed up late that night. Amy stress-baked 3 batches of cookies, her go-to when she's anxious, and we binge-watched a Netflix show that neither of us was paying attention to. Nobody showed up. The same thing happened the next night and the next. Just when we were starting to think it was some strange prank or a case of mistaken identity, it happened. On Friday night, around 8:30, we had just finished dinner, takeout because neither of us felt like cooking, when someone knocked on the door. I looked through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. It was Mike standing there in what looked like the same clothes from yesterday. He clearly hadn't shaved in days, and he was swaying slightly, like he was either drunk, exhausted, or both. Amy grabbed her bat. I told her it wasn't necessary, but I wasn't going to argue. I opened the door, but kept the security chain on. It probably wouldn't stop him if he decided to flip out again. But I figured it was better than nothing. The conversation went something like this. Mike, "Hey, can I come in?" Me, "Absolutely not." Mike, "Come on, man, I just want to talk." Me, "Last time you wanted to talk, I ended up in urgent care." Mike, looking down, Yeah, about that. I came to apologize. Me. Apology accepted. Goodbye. I started closing the door. Mike. Wait, I know the truth now about everything. Me. Cool story. Still not letting you in. Mike. I need to apologize to Katie, too. Can you give me her contact info? Me, laughing. Yeah, that's not happening. Mike, please, I just want to make things right. Me, you had 5 years to make things right. 5 years of silence. Now you show up at my door, expecting what exactly? He kept trying to talk, but I'd had enough. I told him I'd let Katie know he was trying to reach out, and if she wanted to talk, it would be her choice. Then I shut the door. Through the door, I heard him yell something about unblocking my mom because she wanted to talk. I went back to the living room where Amy was still holding her bat like she was ready for baseball season. I called Katie immediately, figuring she needed to know that Mike was trying to contact her. She was just as thrown as I was and made it clear she didn't want me giving Mike her contact info, which I totally understood. The whole thing messed with my head more than I expected. That night, I had trouble sleeping, kept thinking about Mike showing up like that. He looked rough, not just unshaven and disheveled, but defeated, not the same guy who tried to beat me up 5 years ago. Amy was amazing through all of it. She's usually this goofy, laid-back person who makes bad puns and dances while doing the dishes. But that week, she went into full protective mode. The next day, she installed a Ring doorbell. We're renters, but she said she'd rather lose the deposit than feel unsafe. She started working from the coffee shop downstairs instead of from home. She even called her brother, a cop in Tacoma, to ask about restraining orders just in case. It took me a couple of days to decide what to do about my mom. I finally unblocked her number, but sent a text instead of calling, "I hear you want to talk." I figured that it was their move now. After 5 years of silence, they didn't get to just show up and expect everything to be fine. After Mike's surprise visit, my mom started texting me instead of calling, probably figuring out that I wasn't ready for a call. The first exchange went like this. Mom, we want you to come home. Me, I am home. Mom, you know what I mean. We want to apologize and have you back in the family. Me, what brought this on? Mom, we know what really happened now. Me, only took 5 years. Cool. She finally admitted that 2 years after the wedding, Mike married Jessica, a girl from his gym. She was the one I saw at Katie's wedding, sitting alone, looking uncomfortable. Their marriage was apparently a disaster from the start. Constant fighting, trust issues, the whole works. During one of their bigger arguments about 6 months ago, Jessica let something slip. She said something like, "I didn't ruin Emily's relationship just to spend my marriage hearing about her." Let that sink in. Jessica had made the whole thing up. She was infatuated with Mike, saw how close he was with Katie, and decided to eliminate the competition. She told Mike she'd seen Katie and me together, fed him fake details about meetings and secret messages. When Mike asked for proof, she couldn't provide any because it was all a lie. And here's the kicker. When Mike brought the accusations to the family, everyone believed it without question. They thought Mike wouldn't ruin his own wedding unless he was sure. But apparently, sure meant taking the word of some random girl from the gym over people he had known his whole life. Not one person in either family thought to check with me or Katie. Not one person asked for evidence. No one even thought, maybe we should hear their side before completely ruining their lives. The worst part is that everyone believed it so easily. These were people who'd known me my whole life, people who supposedly loved me. But they all decided that the story Jessica told made more sense than the truth. My mom kept sending long emotional texts about how sorry they all were and how they should have known better, how they wanted to make things right. Dad even tried calling. I blocked him immediately. Jenny's been sending pictures of her kids with guilt-trippy captions about how they want to meet their uncle. But here's the thing. You can't just press reset after 5 years of treating someone like dirt. You can't just say, oops, our bad, and expect everything to go back to normal. Trust is like a mirror. Once it's shattered, you can try to piece it back together, but you'll always see the cracks. I'll keep you all updated if anything happens. Thanks for reading. Katie and I decided it was time to confront our families. We agreed to meet, but on our terms. I picked a neutral spot, a coffee shop downtown that neither family had any ties to. Katie was too anxious to fly back just for this, so we set up a Zoom call on my laptop. She was on speaker, but with her video off, she wanted to hear everything but not see their faces. The meeting began with Jessica looking worse for wear. She explained that she'd been in love with Mike and thought Katie didn't deserve him. That was her reason for destroying multiple lives. Not some misunderstanding, just jealousy. Mike tried to apologize, admitting he should have known better than to believe Jessica without proof. Then it was the parents' turn. My mom tried to hug me when I walked in. I stepped back. Katie's dad started quoting scripture about forgiveness until Katie cut him off, saying, "You threw my things in garbage bags and left them in the rain. Don't you dare quote scripture at me." I've never seen Mr. H speechless before. It was almost impressive. Jenny cried about how much her kids miss me. Cool story. Where was this concern when you were helping Mom pack up my things, blocking me, and telling everyone at church how terrible I was? Family is supposed to be the ones who know you best, trust you most, and at least give you the benefit of the doubt. But every person in that room chose to believe the worst about me and Katie, no questions asked. I told them exactly that. I told Jessica she built her happiness on other people's pain, Mike, that his lack of trust ruined more than just his relationship with Katie, and both sets of parents, that they showed us how conditional their love was. Katie spoke up at the end. Calm, but it hit harder than if she'd yelled. The worst part isn't that Jessica lied. It's that none of you thought we were worth the truth. You threw us away based on nothing but gossip, and that says more about you than it does about us. Then she disconnected the call. Meeting over. My parents keep trying to fix things. My mom's sending long texts about family and forgiveness. Dad's telling people he's giving me space. Thanks, Dad. 5 years too late. Katie's parents want to visit her in Chicago. Good luck with that. But here's the thing. Amy and I have built a life here. A good one. I've got a ring hidden in my sock drawer. Don't tell her, but I'm proposing next month. Katie's happy with Chris. We both have real friends who trust us. Jobs we enjoy. Lives we've built from the ground up. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you're born into. Sometimes some things can't be fixed. And sometimes the best revenge is simply being happy without the people who discarded you. That's it, Reddit. That's how my cousin's wedding destroyed my old life and accidentally led me to a better one. Thanks for coming along on the ride. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for all the awards. Yes, I'll update after I propose. No, I'm not worried about Amy seeing this. She doesn't use Reddit, and I'm posting with a throwaway. Katie says thanks for all the support. She's doing great and planning a honeymoon to New Zealand. Yes, Jessica and Mike are getting divorced. Turns out lying and manipulation aren't great foundations for marriage. Who knew? To everyone saying I'm being too harsh, maybe. But you try having your entire family believe the worst about you, throw you away, and then expect everything to be fine just because they finally realized they were wrong. Some things can't be fixed with a simple, sorry,